Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. Welcome to the show. I hope you're having a great day today. I am a #1 international best-selling author, a life and business transformational success coach, and I am illuminating and empower others to find and embrace their life's purpose, live their highest vision, and forge a strong foundation to what I always say, soar to success. For more information, please visit ldcstrategies.com or loriannecasdia.com. Today on our show, we have Dawn Schimke. She is an herbalist and wellness advocate. She began her herbal education in 2007, initially developing apothecary expertise. Her clinical skills and fierce compassion interweave with storytelling, nature, metaphors, and an eye for an energetic patterns. Her business, Leaf and Petal Alchemy, provides support to people with chronic and complex condition. She also creates events for HerbCurious folks who desire simple, delicious techniques to incorporate herbs into their recipes. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Hi, Lorianne. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here. So exciting. So there's something I didn't mention. You are a sister author of Women Who Dream, correct?
Yes, I am a best-selling author. It still feels a little bit unreal, but
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Women Who Dream is the #1 international best-selling book in 6 countries. We're very proud of that. And your chapter name?
My chapter name is Unseen.
Unseen, which we will talk about in a minute. But I really wanted to go back to what I had said in your intro, is that you're an herbalist. I am actually also, I'm a certified herbologist as well as an aromatherapist by Rosemary Gladstar Slick, if you're familiar with her.
Oh, yes.
Were you always a plant person?
Was I always a plant person? So I grew up with one parent. My dad was a gardener, and so we would get our little plot every year. Mm-hmm. The year I quit, I planted so many plants with vines, it became a tangled mess. And it was squash, cucumbers, snapdragons, and one other thing, and that was it. I couldn't handle it, and it was years before I gardened again. But I always loved trees. Like, I was a tree hugger. People in college would tease me for being a tree hugger. So there was always an affinity, but maybe not a full working relationship.
Understood. I know when I was little, I used to just be curious about all the different plants that were around me. And, I would be going through and pretending I was mixing stuff really, really little, because we lived on a hill and we had a number of acres of property. And so it was just a lot of fun for me. And there's this reoccurring thing, and I'm not sure if it was real, a memory, or if it was a dream, but I remember going into a store with all those beautiful apothecary jars with all these really interesting herbs in it, not knowing what to do, but wanting to learn how to do it. And so I understand what you mean by like sitting there going, okay, maybe too many vines here. I totally get that. So how did you start on your wellness journey?
Well, so it was interesting because it wasn't present in my mind as something I needed to do. I had just I had gone through life, and I had a lot of weird health issues as a kid, but nothing that, I was considered healthy, but little things would come up. And so I seemed pretty normal. I did not have a very healthy lifestyle, in my college years, in my 20s. I liked a lot of, I love sweets, still do. I got heavily into Diet Pepsi at one point in my life. And at the point where I really started changing my consciousness was, I had just finished pastry school. I'm a classically trained pastry chef.
Stop it.
A little sidebar. I went to what was the French Culinary Institute with some of the French greats. And And so anyhow,
You went to the Culinary Institute where?
In New York City.
Oh my gosh. Anthony, my significant other, he went there too. My son went to Johnson & Wales.
Oh my gosh. What year did well, we can talk later.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. But yeah, so when you said the Culinary Institute of America, I'm like, I know that place.
Not CIA. It was the French Culinary.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. So that's major. Baking is not easy. So you always do things that are very complex, I've noticed. So that's
right.
Pretty cool.
I love complexity, and I did grow up cooking. Like my mom is an amazing. She was an amazing chef, family, home chef. But she did some things that most moms wouldn't do. It wasn't just milk and cookies type of thing. Yeah. And she's very artistic, and methodical and organized. So she would have been a great pastry chef, but she wasn't. So anyhow, I'm graduating. I'm in my finals, and I'm not feeling so well. As it turns out, a couple weeks later, I'm in my first jobs. I had done an internship, a pretty rigorous internship at Aquavit under Marcus Samuelson, which he was not impressed. But a few weeks later, I'm working in two jobs, in a bakery and then also a well-known restaurant owned, I forget where it was exactly, 14th somewhere. And things were going along nicely, and I think I'm pregnant. So as it turned out, I was. And it was a pretty vulnerable pregnancy, maybe in part because of my genetics, but also in part because I was doing some incredibly strenuous work during that early time. And my boyfriend / fiance / husband, eventually, he was very into kind of a macrobiotic, healthy lifestyle. He had that for a while.
Sure.
And was often expressing his concern to me about, the amount of sugar I ate, that type of thing. So he went to this acupuncturist. I had been to this acupuncturist at his urging just a couple of times, and then I was pregnant, so I didn't go. But I'm having severe symptoms in this pregnancy. And that's sort of how we can segue into the story in the book, if that's what you want to do. But it was a Chinese herbalist, ultimately, who saved my pregnancy.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was rough. I mean, I was getting a lot of really scary messages from the doctors at the hospital. One of great doctors in New York City. You find a lot of great doctors in New York City, and they did not know what to do. They just didn't. Yeah.
No, I totally get that. That's how I got into herbs, by the way. I had a symptom. I had a syndrome. It was, I didn't know what it was at the time, and nobody could figure it out. I went to 16 different doctors to figure this out, and none of them knew what it was. And I went through a battery of things, and I went, no more, I'm not doing this anymore. And I started researching, and that's how I met Rosemary Gladstar Slick. I started reading her books. She started, helping me understand what herbs to use, things like that, because the conditions she thought were a signal of certain things. I had a friend of mine say, just go to this doctor. Just go to this doctor. He's a gastroenterologist. Just go to this doctor. I'm like, okay, but this is the last one, my 17th doctor. I walked in, I explained what I had. He goes, oh, you have colitis. I was like, oh, okay, there you go. I had colitis, diverticulosis, and IBS all at the same time. Nobody could figure it out. He figured it out in 5 seconds, and I felt there was a sense of relief because, okay, now I know what it is. Now I know how to treat it. And then I treated it with herbs and things like that, which he had never really gone that way. His methodology was more pharmaceutical, and I don't really care for using pharmaceuticals. So he went through the journey with me and then started using those herbs with his other clients who were interested in going that. So yeah, it comes from back to where we needed it, and then it became something that we could share with other people. That's where my passion came from.
Right, exactly. And it was it was such a profound transformation. And, I would, I went from having this high risk pregnancy to ultimately having my daughter in the birthing center. It was the new birthing center attached to Roosevelt Hospital.
Yeah.
She was one of the, soon, not the first baby. It was pretty well established, but they were now putting the babies on the internet for the first time.
Yep. They were collecting the data, right?
Right. And so, and it was like my pregnancy, no fun. The delivery, like women, are in general, are envious of it, who have had children and have not had the easy delivery, but I did. And so, and it really, he was able to help me build up my system, to kind of maintain too for those early months where you're just, I was breastfeeding is good, and encouraged, and, it's depleting. It takes a lot of the minerals and vitamins out of our bodies, and that's fine, but we need to put them back somehow.
Right, exactly. So let's weave this into the chapter Unseen. How did the chapter Unseen arrive?
Well, I've told this story before, and I knew that there was kind of a bigger picture, because it's not just about me. I mean, I'm not the only person. And I guarantee there's somebody right now who's having a disheartening interaction with a doctor.
Right.
In fact, pretty much all of us have. And I don't want to say it's anybody's fault, because I know the medical professionals, they're dedicated. They want to help people. And somehow there's this conflict between paradigms. And when there's a degree of complexity, when the healthcare consumer or patient is maybe difficult or stressed, or a woman, or marginalized, or doesn't have enough money, if they're in any type of vulnerable group, it is so much easier for the caregiver to look past them and look at, at one-dimensional or maybe two-dimensional symptoms. And that's not, in an ideal world, yes, you have a cold, you take cough medicine, you're done. And that's not how the human body works. It's a little bit of a puzzle sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that's what's fascinating to me. I don't do puzzles in real life that much, because I think I'm so fascinated with identifying the patterns and the shapes and the colors, how they fit together in the world around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I weaving back to something that I know I encounter a lot is because I don't like using pharmaceuticals, and I want to get to talking about herbs versus pharmaceuticals in our next segment. Mm-hmm. I do constantly challenge my doctors and the medical community, not with purpose, but just because of my intense dislike for taking pharmaceuticals, because I don't like the side effects. And the one thing that I know with the herbs is I don't typically have side effects with the herbs, and side effects shouldn't be worse than the actual condition that you're treating. But I also know that herbs don't work as quickly. So Eastern meeting Western medicine is an important element. It's when do you use what when. So when you're in an acute situation, of course, we use Western medicine because it's quick, it's rapid. But then we want to tone our bodies, and our bodies are amazing. And by using herbs, it allows us to tone our body, no different than exercising and keeping it strong and doing all the things, eating the right foods, ingesting the right minerals and vitamins. All that is really important to sustain the body that we're in, right? Because our spirit is our spirit. who we are is who we are, but it's in this encasing called our bodies, right? So we really need to take good care of it. And so I do have that conflict because they want their natural instinct, because this is how they're trained. It's not because they're not educated. They're trained to write scripts as opposed to working with it. So finding doctors who will, transition and use a combination is really exciting. And I see more and more doctors saying, well, how do you do this? What do you use this for? How come you do this? I actually went to a doctor who gave me a script, and I think my listeners have heard this story, gave me a script for, oh gosh, I can't think of the terminology for it, but I stopped using it and transferred over to a natural version. And I went to that. And when I went to the doctor for a checkup, they said, oh, are you taking this, whatever the script was, are you taking this enzyme? And it was estrogen. That's what it was. Are you taking this estrogen pill? And I was like, no, I stopped taking that. And he said to me, after I had been taking it for like 6 years, he said to me, oh, thank God, it's really not good for you. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And this is the person who was writing the script, but that was he didn't mean it that way. That was the only alternative he had available at that time that he was aware of. I had found this all natural product that works just as well, if not in my case better for me. So, but I was so nervous to tell him because I wasn't taking, and I adore him and I think he is fabulous and I trust him implicitly. It's just that he didn't have exposure to this. And I was a little nervous to say, yeah, I'm not doing what you asked me to do. I'm doing something else,
Right. And and that's another thing, with the person who is not compliant with the doctor can get on, that list of they're uncooperative. And it's, and I've definitely been in that category. And then it seems that the conversation shuts down. Whereas to me, it's more about, I've got a toolbox. You've got a toolbox. Let's, make our toolboxes bigger together and more comprehensive, which is, my sister is a doctor. She went to medical school. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I have done work in a major medical school and teaching hospital with doctors and nurses as they train, doing simulations. And it is very, very stressful and hard on them. And this is, I feel just profound compassion for what they have to go through to get credentialed. And yes, they should be well trained. I feel that the way the programs are structured kind of overwhelm their systems in a certain way. And everybody reacts differently to I think rigorous environments that involve a lot of new information and risk. And when you were talking about the being nervous, well, doctors, caregivers, they don't want to get sued. They can't. I mean, if they don't know something well enough and they do wrong, we have this sort of litigious framework around the medical field, around many fields. So how to balance protecting the patient, the consumer, the doctor, the caregiver, and the interest of both.
Yes.
What's that container?
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, so we just need to find a dynamic that works across the board so that we don't feel uncomfortable. And we have to remember that we're in charge of our bodies. So we decide. The doctors, just like lawyers, they make recommendations. They make best recommendations based on their experience. And it's funny, you say your sister's a doctor, my brother's a doctor. And I remember the story he said when he first came out of medical school. He used to do he's a neonatologist, which is a doctor for babies under 5 pounds. And he would do a battery of tests. There were like 20 tests that he would do, and he would do all 20 tests. But as he got more experienced, he would be able to eliminate just by the symptoms symptoms, other tests that he wouldn't need. He doesn't need these. So he would limit, reduce it down to 3 to 7 tests or 3 tests or what have you, because experience and would tell him he doesn't need these tests. That's not going to help because they don't have X, Y, and Z symptoms. So it's through experience. It's through those trials and errors that they learn. And it's a really great industry to be in. And oh my gosh, that the years that they do in studying and what they learn is just amazing. So to take that and add the element of herbal, to add the natural element is really something that, I'm seeing more and more balance. Are you seeing more balance in that in the industry now?
I am. And while there are schools that are, there are several well-accredited schools for people who want to be naturopathic doctors. I think that's great, and I think they are still kind of sometimes seen as a fringe group, but that more and more they are. There are at least, and I wish that it would come into my head right now. There are 4 or 5 major universities that are really putting effort into incorporating an herbal training program.
Absolutely. And we'll talk more about this. You are listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We're going to take a short break and we will be right back with our great guest, Dawn Schimke. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. If you would like to be a guest or lift up your business, product or non-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, we love to hear from you. Please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. And whether your goal is improving your health, increasing prosperity in business, developing a business and marketing strategy, nurturing your spiritual growth, you are in the right place. We can help you shift your mindset, harness your talent and energy, remove resistance, and rise above limitation. You will be empowered to create your desired reality as we guide you. In the meantime, we want to come back and speak to our wonderful guest. That's Dawn Schimke. And we were talking about, healthcare systems and incorporating herbs into our lives and things like that. And so let me ask you something, Dawn, and thank you, by the way, for being on the show. We really appreciate having you here.
I love this conversation. I mean, it is. I love to share information with people, so thank you.
Oh, absolutely. My honor and pleasure. And I learned so much from all of my sister authors of Women Who Dream You, Rock Star You. So here's a question that's been on my mind since the last segment, which is why use herbs when we have a well-developed pharmaceutical industry?
Well, I think, as we were saying, there are times where it is important, where using pharmaceuticals can be helpful and can be life-saving. And at the same time, and I alluded to this in my chapter, which is, if you have a fly on the window, how are you going to take care of it? With a tissue or with a baseball bat? The fly will probably go away if you hit the window with a baseball bat. But then what does the window look like?
Right.
Whereas, as you said, it's about toning the body. And my belief is that, well, I think many people's beliefs, but our nervous system, our electrical systems that are our perceptual organs, they're everywhere. Every single part of our body has some sort of electrical component. That's a primitive description of what physiology is. And I would say that the overarching goal for any human in terms of wellness has to do with toning their unique bio-individual electrical system.
Right.
And so in that case, pharmaceuticals aren't so good because they're very strong. They're often, they're concentrated from plants many times. I know there's a database that I think there's there's 120 major medications that are derived from plants, if not more, and more are being developed. So they're concentrating this potency to save people's lives. And yet at the same time, just when you're average, you're pretty healthy, but maybe you got this thing or that thing wrong. A more effective strategy is to make these small adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Toning, adapting to stress, and creating the best possible environment in your body. The one that is right for you.
Right.
So, which isn't going to, what's right for me isn't going to be right for everybody.
Correct.
And so I would, so what I find too is that, name a condition. You have an ulcer. What's right? There aren't a lot of choices. It's going to be the caregiver's, care provider's opinion about this works, this is good, but is it right for you? And that seems to kind of not be considered as strongly because literally there isn't enough time.
Right.
They do not have enough time because of the paradigm we're in.
Yeah. Without a doubt. It's, you bring up so many great points. I don't even know where to start. But it is a paradigm. And, I believe that each person needs to decide what pharmaceuticals they need to use versus whether they want to use herbs or if they want to use pharmaceuticals, what works for them, because some things work. I mean, just like plants, there are many different pharmaceuticals that help many different, situations, and herbs do the same thing. So there's 3 different herbs I can think of off the top of my head: hops, chamomile, and valerian. They all have the same effect. Some are stronger than others, and some work better for some than others. And that's why the universe, that's why the earth provides these same sources, similar treatments with 3 different types of herbs. So valerian might be better for you than chamomile. Chamomile is a milder version. Hops is the next level. Then you got valerian, right? So we're looking at. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's so funny that you brought up valerian because I was thinking about herbs that I do not have an affinity for. And valerian is one at the top of the list. I've taken it in the past, and I usually have a pretty negative reaction, as in like I want to hurl. And actually, it's similar. Chamomile isn't great for me either. I like the taste of it, but it's in the ragweed family, and I do have a little touch of a ragweed sensitivity.
Yeah. So you have to experiment and find out what works for your body.
Right. And I like hops, but even more so, I like oats.
Yep.
The milky stage oats, are so building for the nervous system and so calming. But yeah, what is of that group right there, what is your favorite?
It depends. If I just want to relax a little bit, I'll do the chamomile. I'm not a big fan of hops. I find I just don't care for it. Right. And then valerian is terrible. If you've ever smelt it, when I first smelled it, I was like, oh my God, this is like bad socks that haven't been washed and an athlete had been using them prior and it had been put in a locker for it was a terrible smell. Yeah. I have a really quick story for valerian. I was making a valerian tincture and I was actually pressing out the valerian, which is a process you do when you're just taking the liquid out, but all the benefits, the medicinal benefits of the herb are completed. You remove the herb product. And I was working on it, in the cheesecloth and separating it out, the whole 9 yards. I'm at my, in my kitchen doing it. And I have the windows down. It's not a big deal in the house. The windows are open. And my husband at the time walks in. He goes, "What the heck are you doing?" And he goes, "I can smell it at the stop sign," which is about, a half a mile away. And I was just like, "Really?" And all in the background, I heard the horses that live behind us. They were whinnying. And it's because I was pressing out the valerian. So, and once I take that product out, it's a process that herbalists do. We then go give it back to the earth and we bury it in the earth. And I always cover it with chamomile on top, right? So I go through this whole process and he's like, "God, it stinks like high heaven in here." The funny thing is once you start taking it, it smells better and better. It's similar to essential oils that don't smell good to you. And if they're high quality essential oils, you start to enjoy it. So if it smells bad, you need it. If it smells good, then your system has enough of it. So I think that's really an interesting process, don't you?
Yeah. And it's funny because I tend to, like, in terms of taste families, I like sour but not bitter. And I have gotten because I have incorporated strong bitters into my life, just gradually over the years, and sometimes mostly they're lighter digestive bitters. But once in a while, for example, the king of bitters, aka andrographis, which I always keep a little bit on hand, because I will use it if I get bit by a tick that seems to be a concerning size or breed, and I don't get bit by very many ticks. But anyhow, andrographis is pretty raw tasting, and now, but it doesn't bother me like it used to. And just going back to the valerian, I don't know if I developed an aversion because when I was like 21 or 22, I was going out with this guy, and he knew about valerian root, but he would like to roll it into a smoke blend, and so I smoked valerian, and that was the thing that kind of made it intolerable to me. So I think it was the wrong channel.
Yeah, maybe so. It's funny how we get affected by the use of something, right? So yeah, that might be it, or it might be you just have an aversion to it. I know with some pharmaceuticals, it's so funny, how Tylenol works, right? So you take Tylenol, but if we gave it to my sister wouldn't relax and fall asleep. She would walk the floors as if you had given her, caffeine. So she had the opposite effect to all medications. So whenever you gave her one medication that would normally be vitalizing, right? That medication would work as something that would be calming, if you will. So the opposite of what it was intended to do would work on her. It was just really interesting how that works. And once you know that about yourself, you know what to take, what not to take. Right. What to use, what you can use and what you can't use. You can't ask anybody to really know your body better than you know yourself, right? So that's why I always say, be your own advocate. Be your advocate. Know what you want to do with yourself, and follow that regime. Find the doctors that work with you that way. I found great sets of doctors who understand the way I prefer to take care of myself. And whatever your choice is good for you. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. There's really no right or wrong as long as you're taking care of yourself.
Right. And taking responsibility, I think, if somebody has a really, one of the scarier diagnoses you can have,
right.
Let's just say cancer, that I do not advocate, going rogue on that. That is a partnership type of thing.
Yeah.
And it is the person's choice. And yet I've seen people stubbornly, and very few people, fortunately, but stubbornly adhere to that choice to ultimately their detriment.
Yeah.
And so there is always this level of judgment, and what I feel too is, going back to the unseen, somebody's had a disheartening experience with a doctor. It can keep people away from doctors.
Sure.
Because they are so used to not being believed or being low-key mistreated. And in some cases, I imagine more obviously mistreated. But let's just even say that low-key dismissiveness can really, lead to this feeling of despair and hopelessness.
It could, or you can take a different choice, and you can empower yourself like I did, because believe me, those doctors thought I was nuts, and I was just like, no. And even the story even gets thicker, is that, years down, I had the colitis, the whole 9 yards, and I kept getting these attacks, these really bad attacks, and they were escalating. It was once a month, then it was like twice a month, and then it was almost monthly, to where the hospital was, and I had to go to the hospital repeatedly. And the hospital, like, one of the nurses actually said out loud to my face, "Oh, you have an addiction to pain meds." And I was like, check my paperwork. I never accept pain meds. I said, I take Tylenol and Motrin, and I do a cocktail that way. I never accepted your pain meds. So that's not it. I have real pain. P.S. Long story short, they discovered I had a tumor that you couldn't see it. And so that tumor that eventually was removed, thankfully, based on Western medicine. Thank you all to the doctors on that. It was twisting because it was there's a medical name that I don't know, but it was twisting on itself, and every time it twisted, it caused the pain. And it was twisting because it was actually dying inside of me. So that it actually went down to the Mayo Clinic. They had to send it down there because they wanted to, one, make sure it wasn't cancerous, and two, they had never seen anything like it before. So here's something where judgment was made, and it wasn't based on anything. It was just, because of the repetition of it. So being unseen, being unheard, and you have to stand up for yourself. You have to keep going and not give in to that feeling of despair. And that, that you have to really find people and surround yourself with people who are going to support you, and understand that if you're really feeling this way, you need to find the right guidance in people, don't you think?
Exactly. And that's, but we are fortunate because we are literate and able to do that type of deeper research and make those decisions. And there are people, that are very good at many things, but they don't have the capacity to get to the level that they need to really make those informed decisions. And that's where the advocacy comes in. For me, in what I do, is that, if you get a diagnosis of a chronic condition or some sort of complex condition, what else do you get? A to-do list. Mm-hmm. And it can be extensive. And that's the time where that person most needs support. And not an onerous amount of things that they need to change, or do. And it's not that they don't need to do it. It's that they need that person to hold their hand, or people. They need that team approach, as you said. Surround yourself with a team that, can guide you through that channel, that narrow channel of having a chronic or scary or, life-altering diagnosis.
Yeah, without a doubt. So one of our listeners are asking a question of what some of your indispensable herbs do you have?
Oh, wow. Well, this could be a couple of hours of talk.
Okay, well, we only have a few minutes, so
I'll just keep it to a couple.
Top 5.
So I'll tell you right now. And this is so simple. Right now, I'm traveling, seeing my family in Denver, and it's an altitude change. I live on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. I am sensitive to altitude, like many people, but I also have a little bit of a chronic situation called dysautonomia. So these changes can be a little more intense. Now, what I do often at home is take ginger and incorporate that into a lot of things. But if I'm not feeling well, I will, and getting a migraine or any type of digestive disturbance, I will, sometimes I can't take it directly, even in tea, but I'll rub it all over my wrists and my feet and my pulse points, and it's amazing.
Ginger?
Amazingly helpful. But this time, nobody in my family had fresh ginger, and I have a pretty bad headache, and we're getting ready to do something for celebrating my mom's 80th birthday.
And congratulations!
I know, it's amazing. Her birthday's actually Halloween, but we had this was the window in which to do it. And so anyhow, I was feeling pretty unwell on Saturday with a headache and nausea, and I had committed to baking a bunch of things, and I remember reading an herbalist say, "Is what will just knock that migraine out is to take copious amounts of ginger and hot water." I swear, and I didn't have the article or the information in front of me. It said 2 tablespoons. I did not do that. I did about a teaspoon and a half of powdered ginger in boiling water. I threw in a little honey, and I will tell you, it like night and day. And I have an affinity for warming herbs.
Yeah.
So, right after that, there's clove, and clove is really, really cool. It's stimulating, but it also has and it stimulates blood circulation. Sometimes it's even used in aphrodisiac formulas. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
But and of course it's classically known for toothaches. The little kids, the little babies would get clove oil on their teeth, their little nubby teeth coming through for teething, very strong. But it does numb the area. I will also use it. I'll use it for stomach issues. I will use it for throat issues. And going back to the ulcer situation, there has been research done. And so when you talk about research, we're going to just distinguish between in the person, which is called in vivo, or in vitro, in the Petri dish. This was an in vitro study done with the active ingredient in clove, which is called eugenol. Nobody has to remember that. There will be no test.
And with that, I do need to send them to your website, which is leaf and petalalchemy.com, because we are running out of time. Thank you so much for being on today. I need to have you back because there's just so much information you're sharing that I know my email is blowing up. So I love that. But thank you so much for being here today, Dawn. I really appreciate you. Again, to get more information and to reach up with Dawn Schimke, please go to leafandpetalalchemy.com. All of you, thank you for joining us today. I hope we earned your time today and trust. And as I always say, next Saturday we will be here, and I will be here with you on JVC Broadcasting. In the meantime, play a higher role, serve a higher purpose, show up for you, and show up big. Have a really great day, and check back with us soon. Be well.